Dear Professor Haigh, dear Joanna, it's a real pleasure having you online. I wish it was easier to have you in person, but these are the times, to discuss some aspects of climate change from your perspective in London at Imperial College, at many fora at the Royal Society, many other fora that you are watching this pandemic, actually, of long-lasting effect, the climate change evolve. It is now 5 years since the Paris Agreement, and if it wasn't for the pandemic, this would have been marked in many ways, including the COP26, which has now been postponed for a year. The Paris Agreement, as we know, is viewed as a major milestone in the battle against the onset of climate change. It's 5 years later. How do you view the situation 5 years later?
Well, as you say, the Paris Agreement was a huge achievement in a big international agreement on the need to keep temperatures well below 2 degrees and preferably below 1.5 degrees. Since then, we have been waiting to see what action will be taken to achieve this target of 1.5 degrees, and unfortunately, we're nowhere near it. So that's not much progress. But what has happened on several fronts, there's been good things happening. For example, the first thing is advances in the science, which have helped us, position the whole thing better. For example, in observations of permafrost, we now know it's melting faster than we thought before. That's and more of the risks. And another aspect of the science that's improved is our ability to attribute particular events to climate change, or, for example, say that a forest fire somewhere is much more likely to have taken place in the presence of climate change. We're also understanding better the whole idea of a carbon budget and what needs to be done in order to keep temperatures below 1.5 degrees. So that's all positive things on the science side. There's also been much more engagement of regional authorities, councils, individual companies and businesses and banks wanting to know what they can do as in their own sectors to advance action on climate change. And this is all extremely positive, and that's all been improving since Paris. And another thing we've seen, of course, is real engagement with the youth, getting out on the streets and saying what they think. And I think that's been very energizing for the rest of us, which is another good thing. And then finally, very recently, of course, we've had the announcement by China that they're going to get to zero emissions by 2060. This is, I think, the one big thing that's happened that's a real progress, and let's hope that they can deliver on that.
Yeah, this is amazing, actually, switch. 10 years ago, everybody was complaining about China. Now it appears that it has become a champion. But looking at the current situation, and both from the science point of view, but also from the political point of view, because we may have the scientific answers, but unless they are applied and turned into policy, there isn't much traction. What do you think is a pragmatic pathway towards averting calamities, as certain phenomena, melting of permafrost, you mentioned, melting of the ice in Greenland or in Antarctica is accelerating and so on, to avoid the tipping points or permanent irreversible damage?
Well, we know the answer to that, really, and the answer is to stop emitting carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. And the question is how we do that. You're suggesting that we're in a different position now than we might have been, of course, with the coronavirus pandemic. But while that's proved, of course, hugely impactful across the world, I don't think it needs to deflect us from action on climate change. And in fact, I think a focus on a green recovery from COVID would actually be a stimulus and a win-win situation all round. So, for example, investments in clean technologies and these sorts of things, both from the regional up to national size, can enhance jobs and boost the economy and improve things all round. So I think we can try and adopt a positive attitude to that.
Well, you're at the center of the planning of the COP26, which will be held in UK. UK and Italy jointly are advancing it, but it will be mostly held in UK. And everybody is looking forward to it, given that actually it's postponed for a year. So it will be a 2-year gap from the Madrid COP25. What concrete actions one might expect to come out of it, and what would be the thing that would say, or like we said for Paris, major achievement, what one could hope from Edinburgh or UK? Yes.
Well, of course, what we need is more ambitious national determined contributions. I hope those will come in advance of the COP26, as we've heard China saying. So we need considerably more ambitious NDCs. We know that at the moment, if the countries even fulfill what they say they're going to do, the temperature rise will be 3 degrees. So that's not good enough, even if they meet the current NDCs, and they're not meeting them. So we need more ambitious NDCs. And then, very importantly, we need the countries to come up with national strategies in how they're going to be achieved, and not just top level strategies, but also detailed sectoral strategies. How is each country going to do it on agriculture, on industry, on manufacturing, all these other sectors of society? And of course, each country is different, and each country will have to have a different strategy. And that would bring us on to the next achievement from COP, which would be robust adaptation plans. So again, each country is going to be affected differently by climate change, and we need to have serious plans on how countries are going to adapt, and importantly, how the better developed countries are going to be able to support the more vulnerable countries in their ability to adapt to climate change. To do that, there will need to be a focus on climate finance. I mean, there's the Green Climate Fund, but without being an expert on it, it seems to be fairly ineffective at the moment. Perhaps more international boost into the Green Climate Fund would help us to support the developing countries to do what they need to do. And then in the more industrialized countries, financial initiatives such as the climate-related financial disclosures is taking traction. And if all countries could agree that they would be agreed to and followed, that would be a huge positive as well.
So
I think business.
So basically, you are looking for country by country plans and mechanisms to enable them in a dialogue from the developed to underdeveloped. This actually brings us to an initiative which you have helped launch. You are on the International Advisory Committee. The initiative by the Cyprus government to reach out to a very vulnerable region with poor and rich countries, but a hot spot for climate change, the Eastern Mediterranean and Middle East Climate Initiative. How do you see this vectoring into the overall global picture you just presented?
Well, I would suggest that that's exactly the sort of thing that's needed, backed up with practical plans, of course. As you say, there's going to be hotspots around the world, and the Eastern Mediterranean is identified as somewhere that's going to be particularly suffering from climate change. And the arrangement that the Cyprus government has managed to pull out of the bag with all the different countries of the region working together is quite remarkable. But of course, any structural changes needs policy support. So we need the governments and the rest of them to follow up
Yeah, we need policy support, we need funds, and good scientific grounding, so we have
Yes.
effective policies. Well, I hope that soon we'll have the pleasure of having you back to the Cyprus Institute and Cyprus
Thank you.
again, and especially to develop further this initiative. And of course, we'll be watching the developments around COP26, which you and your colleagues are.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Joanna.
You're very welcome. Nice speaking to you. Bye-bye.